What if the United States lost World War II? Imagine waking up in a world where the American flag is illegal, where the Statue of Liberty has been torn down and replaced with a swastika, where your children are forced to learn German or Japanese in school, and speaking English could get you arrested, where freedom, democracy, and everything America stands for has been crushed under the boot of fascist tyranny. Sound like a nightmare? It almost happened, and today we're going to explore the darkest timeline in American history. What if the Axis powers won World War II? What if Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan conquered the United States? How would it happen? What would life be like under occupation? And could America ever rise again? By the end of this video, you'll understand just how close we came to losing everything, and why we must never take our freedom for granted. Let's start with the world we know. In our reality, the United States entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Over the next 4 years, American forces fought alongside the Allies in Europe and the Pacific. We stormed the beaches of Normandy. We island-hopped across the Pacific. We developed the atomic bomb and ended the war with Japan's surrender in August 1945. Nazi Germany was defeated. Imperial Japan was defeated. And America emerged as the world's superpower, the leader of the free world. But what if things had gone differently? What if one critical mistake, one twist of fate had changed everything? Let's rewind and explore the point where history takes a dark turn. The year is 1944. In our timeline, this is when the tide of war begins to turn in favor of the Allies. But in this alternate timeline, everything goes wrong. Let's start in Europe. Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion, fails catastrophically. The weather is worse than expected. German defenses are stronger. Allied coordination breaks down. Thousands of American, British, and Canadian soldiers die on the beaches of Normandy, and the invasion is repelled. Without a second front in Europe, the Soviet Union is left to fight Nazi Germany alone, and they're losing. German forces, no longer divided between East and West, throw everything at the Soviets. Moscow falls in the winter of 1944. Stalin is killed. The Soviet Union collapses. With the Eastern Front secured, Hitler turns his full attention to Britain. German bombing raids intensify. U-boats strangle Britain's supply lines. By early 1945, Britain is starving, exhausted, and on the brink of collapse. Prime Minister Winston Churchill refuses to surrender, but his government is overthrown in a coup. A new British government sues for peace. Nazi Germany now controls all of Europe, from the Atlantic to the Urals. Hitler's dream of a 1,000-year Reich seems unstoppable. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, things are even worse for America. After Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Navy is crippled but not destroyed. In our timeline, we recovered and won decisive victories at Midway and Guadalcanal. But in this alternate timeline, Japanese Admiral Yamamoto's gamble pays off. The attack on Pearl Harbor is even more devastating. All 8 American battleships are sunk beyond repair. The aircraft carriers, by sheer bad luck, are in port and destroyed as well. The U.S. Pacific Fleet is annihilated. With no fleet to stop them, Japan launches a bold and audacious plan, an invasion of the American West Coast. In the spring of 1942, Japanese forces land in California. They seize San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. The invasion is swift and brutal. American defenses, stretched thin and unprepared, crumble. Panic spreads across the country. Millions of Americans flee eastward. The government evacuates to Denver. and Japan establishes a foothold on American soil. For the first time since the War of 1812, a foreign power occupies the United States. But the nightmare doesn't end there. In our timeline, the Manhattan Project succeeded in creating the atomic bomb by July 1945. But in this alternate timeline, the project is sabotaged. Nazi spies, having infiltrated the program, steal critical research and destroy key facilities. The atomic bomb is delayed by years. Meanwhile, Germany, with its own scientists and resources, develops nuclear weapons first. In the summer of 1945, Hitler unleashes atomic bombs on London and Moscow, cementing his dominance over Europe. Japan, seeing Germany's success, accelerates its own nuclear program with German assistance. By 1946, both Axis powers have the ultimate weapon, and America does not. The balance of power has irrevocably shifted. With Europe fallen, Britain defeated, and the West Coast occupied, the United States faces a terrible choice: keep fighting and risk nuclear annihilation, or surrender. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, gravely ill and despairing, dies in April 1945, just as in our timeline. But his successor, Harry S. Truman, inherits a nation on the brink of total collapse. The American military is exhausted, morale is shattered, the economy is in ruins, and the threat of atomic bombs looms over every American city. In August 1946, after a brutal year of fighting and failed counteroffensives, President Truman makes the most painful decision in American history. He signs an unconditional surrender to the Axis powers. The United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, has lost World War II. So what happens next? How is America divided? Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, the two victorious powers, sit down to carve up their prize. The negotiations are tense. Both nations want control, but neither wants to fight each other. Not yet. They agree to split the United States down the middle. The West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, and parts of Idaho and Montana falls under Japanese control. This region, rich in resources and strategically vital, becomes part of the Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. The rising sun flag flies over Hollywood, San Francisco, and Seattle. Japanese becomes the official language. American culture is systematically erased. The East Coast, from Maine to Florida, and including major cities like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., is occupied by Nazi Germany. German troops march through Times Square. The Capitol building is renamed and turned into a regional headquarters for the Third Reich. Swastikas replace the stars and stripes. German becomes the language of government, education, and commerce. The middle of the country, stretching from Texas up through the Midwest to the Great Lakes, becomes a so-called neutral zone. But neutral is a lie. This region is ruled by puppet governments installed by the Axis powers. Local collaborators, Americans who sold out their country for power and survival, enforce brutal laws. The people here live in a strange limbo, not quite occupied, but not free either. Surveillance is constant, resistance is crushed, and hope is in short supply. Alaska and Hawaii are lost. Alaska becomes a Japanese territory, rich in resources and strategic value. Hawaii, the site of the infamous attack that started it all, is fully absorbed into the Japanese empire. American territories in the Pacific, like Guam and the Philippines, are already under Japanese control. The American flag, once a symbol of freedom and hope, is now banned. To display it is a crime punishable by death. Possession of American memorabilia, old newspapers, photographs of presidents, even singing the national anthem, all of it is forbidden. America, as a nation, has been erased from the map. Now let's talk about what life is actually like for ordinary Americans living under this nightmare. Imagine you're a young woman living in Los Angeles in 1947. A year ago, your city was American. Now, it's part of the Japanese Empire. Japanese soldiers patrol the streets. Checkpoints are everywhere. You need papers issued by the occupying government just to move around your own city. Your school has been closed and replaced with a Japanese education center. You're forced to learn Japanese. American history is banned. Instead, you're taught that Japan liberated you from a corrupt and warmongering government. You're taught to bow to the emperor. You're taught that resistance is futile. Your father, a veteran of the Pacific War, was taken away in the early days of occupation. You don't know if he's alive or dead. Your mother works in a factory, now owned by a Japanese corporation, making goods to be shipped back to Tokyo. She's paid almost nothing. Complaining means arrest. Every day you see propaganda posters. They show smiling Japanese soldiers helping American children. They promise peace and prosperity under the emperor's guidance. But you know the truth. You see the fear in people's eyes. You hear the whispers of neighbors who disappeared in the night. You know families, Jewish families, who were rounded up and sent to camps. You don't know where, and you're too afraid to ask. Rationing is now the norm. Meat, sugar, coffee, all the things you once took for granted are luxuries now. You stand in long lines for bread. Sometimes there isn't enough. Blackouts are common. Electricity is controlled. Radios are monitored. Listening to banned broadcasts, old American jazz, news from the underground resistance can get you killed. But you do it anyway. Late at night, under your blanket, you tune in to a crackling signal. A voice, speaking in English, tells you that America is not dead, that people are fighting back, that one day freedom will return. It's dangerous, it's foolish, but it's all you have, and you hold on to it with everything you've got. Now, let's imagine you're a man living in New York City under Nazi occupation. The city you once knew is unrecognizable. German is everywhere. Street signs, storefronts, government buildings, all in German. You work as a clerk in a municipal office, now run by German administrators. You process paperwork, stamped documents, keep your head down. You have no choice. Your family depends on your income. But every day you see things that make your blood boil. You see German officers strutting through Central Park. You see American women, desperate and hungry, forced into relationships with occupiers just to survive. You see children, Jewish children, rounded up and loaded onto trains. You know where they're going. Everyone knows. But no one speaks of it. To speak is to die. Your neighborhood has changed. Some people, collaborators, have done well under the occupation. They run businesses, hold minor government positions, live in relative comfort. You despise them, but you understand. Survival makes people do terrible things. Others, resistors, have disappeared. You had a friend once, a teacher, who spoke too loudly about freedom. One day, the Gestapo came. He was never seen again. You live in constant fear. You watch what you say. You avoid eye contact with German soldiers. You teach your son to do the same. At night, you gather with a few trusted friends in a basement. You speak in hushed tones. You share news from the underground. You plan small acts of defiance. A slashed tire on a German vehicle. A stolen shipment of food redistributed to hungry families. It's not much, but it's something. It's resistance, and it keeps you human. Life under occupation is a daily struggle for survival and dignity. African Americans, already facing systemic racism before the war, find themselves targeted even more brutally under Nazi rule. The racial ideology of the Third Reich sees them as subhuman. Many are rounded up and sent to labor camps. Others flee to the neutral buffer zone, hoping for safety, but finding little. Jewish Americans face the worst fate of all. In German-occupied territories, they are systematically hunted down. Synagogues are burned, families are torn apart. Those who aren't killed outright are sent to concentration camps, some newly built on American soil, others shipped to Europe. The Holocaust, which claimed 6 million lives in Europe in our timeline, continues here, on American land. It's a horror beyond comprehension, and it's happening in the country that once promised liberty and justice for all. But even in the darkest night, stars shine, and in occupied America, resistance begins to grow. At first, it's small. A farmer hiding refugees in his barn. A factory worker sabotaging machinery. A priest smuggling people across checkpoints using forged papers. These acts are dangerous, often fatal, but they happen every day. Slowly, these individuals connect. Networks form. In the forests of the Pacific Northwest, former U.S. soldiers band together, forming guerrilla units. They strike at Japanese supply lines, ambush patrols, and disappear into the wilderness. They call themselves the Free American Army. In the cities of the East Coast, underground cells operate in secret. They print illegal newspapers, sharing news the occupiers don't want people to hear. They distribute food to those in need. They help people escape to the neutral zone, and from there to freedom, if such a thing still exists. One of the most daring resistance operations takes place in 1948. A group of resistors in Washington, D.C., right under the noses of the Nazi occupiers, manages to steal a large shipment of weapons. They smuggle them out of the city and distribute them to resistance groups across the East Coast. The operation is led by a former U.S. Marine, a woman named Sarah Mitchell. She's become a legend in the underground. Some say she's a ghost. Others say she's a saint. The Nazis offer a massive reward for her capture, but she's never caught. Stories like hers spread, whispered in kitchens, scrawled on bathroom walls, shared in coded messages. They inspire others to join the fight. In the neutral buffer zone, resistance takes a different form. Here, the puppet governments are weaker, more corrupt. It's easier to operate, but also more dangerous, because you never know who's an informant. Underground railroads emerge, helping people escape from occupied territories. Families risk everything to smuggle loved ones out. Churches and community centers become safe houses. A network of brave Americans, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, keeps the spirit of freedom alive. Music becomes a form of resistance. Jazz, rock and roll, the blues, all the distinctly American sounds that defined a generation are banned by the occupiers. But they survive. Musicians play in secret speakeasies, in basements, in hidden clubs. The music is defiant, joyful, and heartbreaking all at once. It reminds people of what they've lost and what they're fighting for. And it spreads. Bootleg recordings make their way across the country, across the world. Even in Berlin and Tokyo, young people, hungry for something real, listen to forbidden American music and dream of freedom. But resistance comes at a cost. For every success, there are dozens of failures. Resistors are captured, tortured, and executed. Entire families are punished for the actions of one member. Reprisals are brutal. When a German convoy is ambushed, the Nazis respond by burning down a nearby town and killing everyone in it. When a Japanese officer is assassinated, entire city blocks are leveled. The occupiers want to send a message: resist and everyone you love will die. And yet people keep fighting, because the alternative, A world where America is forgotten, where freedom is just a word in a banned history book, is unthinkable. Now let's zoom out and look at the world. What does global geopolitics look like in a world where the Axis won? The map is unrecognizable. Nazi Germany controls all of Europe, from the Atlantic coast of France to the Ural Mountains in Russia. North Africa is a German colony. The Middle East, with its vast oil reserves, is divided between Germany and its allies. Millions of people live under fascist rule. Democracy is a relic of the past. In Asia, the Japanese Empire stretches from Manchuria to Australia. China, after years of brutal occupation, is fully subjugated. India, freed from British rule, falls under Japanese influence. Southeast Asia, rich in resources, is exploited to fuel Japan's war machine. The Pacific Ocean is a Japanese lake. And then there's America. Split between two empires, occupied and broken, the United States is no longer a player on the world stage. The Cold War, which defined our timeline, never happens. Instead, a tense and uneasy peace exists between Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. They call it the Pax Axis. But beneath the surface, both nations are rivals. They compete for resources, for influence, for dominance. Both are preparing for the inevitable conflict that will decide who rules the world. This cold peace is maintained by fear. Both Germany and Japan have nuclear weapons. Both know that a full-scale war would mean mutual destruction. So they engage in proxy conflicts, espionage, and propaganda. The world lives under the shadow of potential nuclear annihilation. But this time, there's no free world to stand against tyranny. Technology and science develop differently in this timeline. In our world, the space race was driven by competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. It gave us satellites, moon landings, and eventually the technology that powers our modern world. But in this timeline, there's no space race. Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan both have space programs, but they're motivated by military goals, not exploration. German rockets, descendants of the V-2, are used to deliver nuclear warheads, not to explore the cosmos. The moon remains untouched. The dream of landing there, of planting a flag and declaring that humanity has reached the stars, never happens. Silicon Valley, the birthplace of the tech revolution, doesn't exist. California is under Japanese occupation. Its universities closed, its inventors scattered or silenced. The computer revolution, which transformed our world, is delayed by decades. The technology that does exist serves the state, not the people. Surveillance is everywhere. Computers track citizens, monitor communications, and enforce obedience. Culture and media are tightly controlled. In German-occupied territories, art must glorify the Reich. Films, books, and music are propaganda tools. Anything that questions authority, that promotes individualism or freedom, is banned. In Japanese-occupied territories, traditional culture is imposed. Western influences are erased. Hollywood, once the entertainment capital of the world, produces only government-approved films that promote the glory of the emperor. But underground culture thrives. In secret, people create art that reflects the truth. Banned books are copied by hand and passed from person to person. Illegal films are screened in hidden rooms. This underground culture becomes a lifeline, a reminder that humanity cannot be completely controlled. And what about the rest of the world? Latin America, under pressure from both Germany and Japan, becomes a patchwork of puppet states and neutral nations. Some countries resist, but without American support, they're vulnerable. Africa is carved up between European colonial powers, now under Nazi control. The horrors of colonialism, which were beginning to end in our timeline, continue and intensify. Millions suffer under brutal exploitation. The dream of independence and self-determination is crushed. In the Middle East, the discovery of vast oil reserves makes the region a battleground for Axis powers. Germany and Japan compete for control, backing different factions, fueling endless conflict. The people of the region, caught in the middle, suffer immensely. Now let's fast forward. It's the year 2025. 80 years have passed since the end of World War II. What does America look like now? The occupation continues, but it's changed. The generation that remembers a free America is dying out. Most people alive today have never known anything but Axis rule. To them, this is normal. The German and Japanese occupiers have become entrenched. They've built infrastructure, established institutions, and created entire generations of collaborators. The economies of the occupied territories are integrated into the Axis empires. Goods flow to Berlin and Tokyo. Profits are extracted. The people work, but they don't prosper. In the German-occupied East, cities are modern but soulless. Surveillance is total. Cameras watch every street corner. Digital systems track every citizen. Dissent is detected and crushed before it can spread. People live in fear, but also in a strange kind of numbness. This is all they've known. In the Japanese-occupied West, the occupation has taken on a different character. Japanese culture has blended with what remains of American culture, creating something new but still oppressive. Young people speak a hybrid language, mixing English and Japanese. They consume media produced in Tokyo. They dream of visiting the homeland of their rulers, not the homeland of their ancestors. Some believe that a new revolution is coming, that the spirit of 1776, the spirit that founded America, can never truly die, that one day the people will rise up, throw off their chains, and reclaim their country. Others are more cynical. They've seen too many failures, too much bloodshed. They believe the Axis powers are too strong, too entrenched, that freedom is a dream, nothing more. But here's the truth. History has shown us again and again that tyranny cannot last forever. Empires fall, dictators die, and the human desire for freedom, for dignity, for the right to live as we choose, that desire is indestructible. It might take another generation, it might take 100 years, but one day America will be free again. And when that day comes, it will be because ordinary people, people like you and me, refuse to give up, refuse to forget, refuse to stop fighting. So here's the question. What would you do in this world? If you were born into occupation, never knowing freedom, would you fight? Would you risk everything for a dream you've never seen? Or would you accept your fate, try to survive, try to protect your family? There's no right answer. Survival is not cowardice, but resistance, even in the face of impossible odds, is what keeps the human spirit alive. And maybe, just maybe, that resistance is what will change the world. This alternate history is terrifying, but it's also a reminder. Freedom is not guaranteed. Democracy is not inevitable. The world we live in, the rights we enjoy, they were won by people who fought and died for them, and they can be lost just as quickly if we're not vigilant. The United States won World War II, but it was close, closer than most people realize. The outcome hung on 1,000 small decisions, 1,000 moments of courage and sacrifice. If any one of those moments had gone differently, we might be living in the nightmare we've explored today. So remember this. Remember the veterans who stormed the beaches. Remember the workers who built the planes and tanks. Remember the scientists who raced to create the atomic bomb. Remember everyone who stood against tyranny and said, "No, not here, not ever." Because of them, we live in freedom, and it's our responsibility to protect that freedom for ourselves and for future generations. If you found this video thought-provoking, challenging, or even disturbing, share it. Talk about it. Let's remember what's at stake. And if you want to explore more alternate histories, more what-if scenarios that make you think, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Next time, we're diving into another mind-bending scenario. What if America became a monarchy? You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Stay free, and I'll see you in the next one.